Yes, welcome back. And we're still on sunrise. The day's just beginning to unwind and open. Um, our first topic this morning that we're looking at is the oil sector. Nigeria's gas master plan was launched with fanfare in 2011 and is currently in limbo, as we know it, as the uncertainty surrounding the draft PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB, has halted new investments. Stakeholders say the uncertainty surrounding the PIB fiscal terms is putting a brake on up to $30 billion, about 48 trillion naira investment needed in the gas sector by the National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC.
Those are mind-boggling figures.
Those are mind-boggling figures when you consider the
48 trillion. I can't even begin to imagine.
Trillion. That's a lot of money that is at stake. I don't even want to begin to count, not on my fingertips. Ooh. So you look at the amount of investment that we're putting on break because we're not implementing, or we're not pursuing and progressing and delivering the PIB that would help to bring the change that is required in the oil sector, both downstream and upstream. But this is creating a big problem. We now will be looking at this and a number of other issues, because the deregulation of the industry will help as well. But all of these issues are what we'll be looking at. Especially, we'll definitely not miss out on the issue of the scarcity of petroleum in Nigeria, not only in Lagos, in Abuja and other parts of the country. And to discuss this with us, I'll start from my right. Do I say Zaka one? Well, we have Mr. Bala Zaka, who's a petroleum expert. Thank you for coming this morning.
And an accountant, am I?
And an accountant, yes.
Right. Good morning, Nigeria.
And then on my left, I've got Mr. Yomi Orenuga, who is a petroleum engineer and a lawyer. We're not having people with just one profession.
multiple disciplines
this morning. And of course, we've got a guest who is in Abuja. He is the chairman of the House Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream, and that's Honorable Dakuku Peterside. Great to have you. Maybe we should start with you, because the point I raised at the beginning of this intro is the fact that the PIB has been stalled. What is the status of the PIB, Honorable Dakuku Peterside? You are the House Committee, the chairman of the House Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream. What is the status of PIB at the moment?
You will have observed that the PIB has passed through second reading in the House of Representatives. And if you understand how the Parliament works, there's a lot of speed, there's a lot of accomplishment. And if you follow the debate of so many members of the House that contributed to the debate on the PIB, not a single person spoke against the PIB. Virtually everybody spoke in support of PIB. It means that Nigerians appreciate, and of course members of parliament appreciate, the importance of PIB to the economy of the country, and by extension to the issue of job creation, to the issue of revenue, to the issue of new investments in the oil and gas industry. And that's where we are exactly. It's passed through second reading in the House of Representatives. It's passed through first reading in Senate, and I hope any moment from now it will also pass through second reading in Senate.
Okay, that being the case then, what are there particular part of that PIB bill that you have concerns about in the House? Because there are some people who have said that there's the issue of the power that is being allocated to the Minister of Petroleum in the PIB, and a number of other things. Are there part of it that gives concern to the House of Representatives today?
If you follow the debate, you would notice that a lot of concerns were raised in course of debating the PIB, draft PIB before the House. On the powers of the minister, a lot of concerns were raised that a lot of power is domiciled in the office of the minister, and that it could be abused. I can take on specifics, and there are several of them. On the issue of gas flaring, the minister could give an exception under certain conditions. Those conditions were not defined, and they felt that that could be abused. And in so many, minister could grant unconditional license, and they felt that's not consistent with our quest for transparency. And I can go on and on and on. There are a lot of concerns about the powers of a minister, but that, again, that will be looked at extensively at the committee stage. The other issue is the host community fund. Nobody spoke against the host community fund. Rather, the issue of management of the host community fund was not defined by the draft law before us. Rather, the proposal is it should be done by regulation, and a lot of members expressed concern about that. Then on the issue of national frontier exploration, again, that is under the office of the minister, and most members, especially those of our friends and brothers from the northern part of the country, thought that that is not giving it the attention and priority it deserves. They believe that a national frontier exploration agency should be created specifically to advance our search for oil in the national frontiers, the Chad Basin, the Sokoto Basin, and the rest of the basins and troughs in the country. That, again, is some issue that calls for concern. Then they also believe that we don't have enough provisions to guarantee transparency in the industry. That, again, calls for some concern. And again, we can go on and on again on the areas of concern. There are genuine concerns. Some perhaps requires explanation. Others require some tinkering. Again, another consideration or another area of concern is the issue of liberalization or deregulation of the downstream sector. And they believe that petroleum equalization fund might be inconsistent with a deregulated downstream sector. There are provisions that are on its own inconsistent with a downstream sector that is deregulated. But again, all of that will be attended to at the committee stage. We think that it will be given critical consideration. Then on the issue of fiscal regime, we're moving from a single tax regime to a multiple or double tax regime, where before now, oil producing firms pay only the petroleum profit tax. We're moving to a regime where they have to pay two types of taxes, the hydrocarbon tax and the corporate income tax. There are a lot of things that we need to get right with that. So for me, the PIB is on course, except that some issues require clarification, others need some tinkering, and a few others need to be looked at again to ensure that clauses don't contradict each other in the PIB. Mind you, this is the first comprehensive reform after the major act, the Petroleum Act of 1969. This will be the first time our country is undertaking a comprehensive reform concerning the laws governing oil and gas industry, which incidentally is our mainstay. The other concern is on the issue of gas development, the gas infrastructure, setting up of national gas company. Again, you notice that a few clauses in the PIB is inconsistent with the earlier gas roadmap that we had looked at. We think that we need to create an alignment. So those are some of the issues.
Okay, I was going to lump two questions into one, but it seems you've answered one of them, which is the issue of all of the concerns, because you started by saying, yeah, it is on course, everything is fine, but then you mentioned more than a handful of concerns. So it means it's probably not on course. But you've answered the question in terms of saying that some of those concerns will be addressed at the committee stage. Now, for the sake of ourselves here in the studio and for all of Nigerians, let us understand the workings of the House of Parliament, of the National Assembly. Now, what are the steps that this bill will have to go through, and what's the estimated time scale for making sure that this happens? It's gone through the first and second reading. What would happen after that? And at what stage should we expect it to come back to a plenary session where decision will be taken and will be pronounced as law in Nigeria?
Well, I had assumed that every average Nigerian understands the stage a bill will pass through to become a law. It's passed through first reading already, pass through second reading, which is a very critical stage. Very often bills terminate at that stage, but thank God we passed through that stage and we're progressing. And mind you, I like to repeat for emphasis sake that not a single person spoke against the PIB throughout the debate leading to the second reading of the bill. Now it's been committed to an ad hoc committee made up of principally the committees on petroleum upstream, petroleum downstream, gas, local content, justice, but they're under the leadership of the chief whip of the House and the deputy chairmanship of the minority whip. Now, of course, at the committee stage, we are going to call for public input. It will be subjected to public scrutiny. There will be public hearing on the PIB so that other stakeholders will make their input, and we'll take it from there. And we'll now sit down and look at it clause by clause and ensure that the interest of Nigerian people is protected. The Nigerian people are protected. After the committee stage, and we've done some tinkering that is inevitable, we will now come back to the House at plenary, and the House will look at it at plenary, and at that point, we'll look at it clause by clause, clause by clause. After looking at it clause by clause, then of course we'll take the final reading and ensure that we'll sit down and harmonize, or if Senate passes the same version, we'll take it from there, and then we'll forward it to Mr. President for his assent. After the President's assent, it becomes law of the land.
Yeah.
So if you ask me
what kind of
the estimated period,
we're looking
I can't say, because Senate has a role to play as well as the House of Representatives. I am pretty sure in the House of Representatives that in the next 2 weeks we will advance seriously. And I'm optimistic that by first quarter of next year we would have passed the PIB at the House of Reps. I'm also optimistic that the Senate will have passed it, and we hope that the President will give his assent and it becomes law by next year.
Okay.
Yes, let's...
first quarter of next year.
First quarter of next year, yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. We'll come back to you shortly, but let's talk to some people we have in the studio. Mr. Not Honorable. Mr.
He is honorable. He's just not honorable member of the House.
Yes. Mr. Zaka, the issue of our refineries,
yes,
it seems to be also, apart from the PIBs, also seems to be in the center of our woes.
yes.
Where do we stand with this now? Is there any plan to rectify the issues that have arisen because we do not have refineries working properly and we are not building new ones?
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, let me start by appreciating the heads up we just got from the Honorable, because it's a heads up, it's a guide, and it gives us a kind of window with some flexibility to start asking questions after a given time frame. But I want to start
after the first quarter of
that's
2013.
Right. But I want to start by saying personally that to me, a councillor is my leader, a local government chairman is my leader, a commissioner, a House of Reps member, a senator, to the president. The president is my leader. Leaders will be remembered for only two things, from a councillor to the president. You will be remembered for the problems you created for your country, or for the problems you solve for your country or people. That's all. And on that grounds, it's now left to the leaders to decide whether they will want to be remembered as problem solvers or problem creators. But there is one thing that we have all known has always been an issue in Nigeria. That is the problem of procrastination. Because it has a lot to do with the refineries you are talking, maintenance, rehabilitations, turnaround, and whatever. If you look at what is happening, when you talk about the downstream, where the refinery comes into, there are fundamental questions you will ask. What is the position of the West African gas pipeline today? It is just unnecessary procrastination that has probably rendered it irrelevant. When that project was conceived, the plan was we were going to have enough gas from Escravos into Lagos, Lagos to Cotonou, Cotonou, Lome, Tema, Takoradi. You can imagine if that has been followed to the letter. What about the situation with the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline? When that idea was conceived, nobody knows that exploration will start in Niger. Talk less of having, oil taps turned on today in Zindar. If that had continued, we would have had gas today passing from Nigeria through Niger, Algeria to Europe. Those alone will tell you the extent to which procrastination can destroy an entire system. So today we have experienced what I can say a tragic situation. And whenever you experience a tragedy naturally inflicts pains on you. In the course of that pain, you are forced to think. And when you think, you are likely to be flexible and allow changes to take place. On that premise, based on the pains we have experienced and the kind of thoughts we have had so far, I want to believe the delays we used to have when people will be talking about rehabilitating our refineries, bringing in fake spare parts, bringing in fake and non-existent contractors are over. Anything the government tells me today, or whoever is in charge, or the leaders, even if they are not achieved 100%, I have faith today that we can achieve them above at least the quartile. And based on that, I want to say the state of our refineries today are completely unfortunate. They project or they put us on a pedestal of a country that is not serious as far as downstream is concerned. But I think things are changing. One, because our